Okay, how's it going, everybody? So we're going to go ahead and read some more Karl von Clausewitz, General Karl von Clausewitz, from On War. This is book 1 on the nature of war. It's chapter 1, What is War? And so we read the first 15 parts. We're now going to read 16 through 20. Let's go ahead and get into this. Let's see, number 16 is an attack and defense are things differing in kind of an unequal force. Polarity is therefore not applicable to them. If there was only one form of war, to wit, the attack of the enemy, therefore no defense, or in other words, if the attack was distinguished from the defense merely by the positive motive, which the one has and the other has not, but the methods of each were precisely one and the same, then as this sort of fight, every advantage gained on the one side would be a corresponding disadvantage to the other, and true polarity would exist. But action in war is divided into two forms, attack and defense, which, as we shall hereafter explain more particularly, are very different and of unequal strength. Polarity, therefore, lies in that to which both bear a relation, in the decision, but not in the attack or defense itself. If the one commander wishes the solution put off, the other must wish to hasten it, but only by the same form of action. If it is A's interest not to attack his enemy at present, but 4 weeks hence, then it is B's interest to be attacked, not 4 weeks hence, but at the present moment. This is the direct antagonism of interest. But it by no means follows that it would be for B's interest to attack A at once. That is plainly something totally different. 17. The effect of polarity is often destroyed by the superiority of the defense over the attack. And this, the suspension of action in war is explained. If the form of defense is stronger than that of offense, we shall hereafter show. The question arises, is the advantage of deferred decision as great on the one side as the advantage of the defensive form on the other? If it is not, then it cannot be by its counterweight overbalance the latter, and thus influence the progress of the action of the war. We see, therefore, that the impulsive force existing in the polarity of interest may be lost in the difference between the strength of the offensive and the defensive, and thereby become ineffectual. If, therefore, that side for which the present is favorable is too weak to be able to dispense with the advantage of the defensive, he must put up with the unfavorable prospects which the future holds out. For it may still be better to fight a defensive battle in the unpromising future than to assume the offensive or make peace at present. Now, being convinced that the superiority of the defensive, this is in parentheses, lighter letters, it must be remembered that all this antedates by some years the introduction of long-range weapons. And back to Clausewitz. Now, being convinced that the superiority of the defensive, rightly understood, is very great, and much greater than may appear at first sight, we conceive that the greater number of those periods of inaction which occur in war are thus explained without involving any contradiction. The weaker the motives to action are, the more will those motives be absorbed and neutralized by this defense, between attack and defense. The more frequently, therefore, will action in warfare be stopped, as indeed experience teaches. Okay, so this is number 18. A second ground consists in the imperfect knowledge of circumstances. But there is still another cause which may stop action in war, viz. An incomplete view of the situation. Each commander can only fully know his own position. That of his opponent can only be known to him by reports, which are uncertain. He may, therefore, form a wrong judgment with respect to it upon data of this description. And in consequence of that error, he may suppose that the power of taking the initiative rests with his adversary when it lies really with himself. This want of perfect insight might certainly just as often occasion an untimely action as untimely inaction. And hence it would in itself no more contribute to delay than to accelerate action in war. Still, it must always be regarded as one of the natural causes, which may bring action in war to a standstill without involving a contradiction. But if we reflect how much more we are inclined and induced to estimate the power of our opponents too high than too low, because it lies in human nature to do so, we shall admit that our imperfect insight into facts in general must contribute very much to delay action in war, and to modify the application of the principles pending our conduct. The possibility of a standstill brings into the action of war a new modification, inasmuch as it dilutes that action with the element of time. checks the influence or sense of danger in its course, and increases the means of reinstating a lost balance of force. The greater the tension of feelings from which the war springs, the greater therefore the energy with which it carried on. So much the shorter will be the periods of inaction. On the other hand, the weaker the principle of warlike activity, the longer will be these periods, for powerful motives increase the force of the will, and this, as we know, is always a factor in the product of force. Okay, so this is number 19. Frequent periods of inaction in war remove it further from the absolute and make it still more a calculation of probabilities. But the slower the action proceeds in war, the more frequent and longer the periods of inaction. So much the more easily can an error be repaired. Therefore, so much the bolder a general will be in his calculations. So much the more readily will he keep them below the line of the absolute and build everything upon probabilities and conjecture. Thus, according as the course of the war is more or less slow, more or less time will be allowed for that, which the nature of a concrete case particularly requires calculation of probability based on given circumstances. Okay, then this is number 20. Therefore, the element of chance only is wanting to make of war a game, and in that element it is least of all deficient. We see from the foregoing how much the objective nature of war makes it a calculation of probabilities. Now there is only one single element still wanting to make it a game, and that element is it certainly is not without. It is chance. There is no human affair which stands so constantly and so generally in close connection with chance as war. But together with chance, the accidental, and along with it, good luck, occupy a great place in war. Okay. So yeah, that's 16 through 20 of On War by Clausewitz. That's What is War? Chapter 1, What is War? So yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, Medium, all of these are Marxist Soft. Follow me there. Y'all have a great day.